tell me about when the teacher said to you, you should be aiming for Cambridge, Burnham.
I mean, it came via a parents' night at first. My mum and dad came home for a parents' night, and they said that Mr. Harrington, the English teacher, had mentioned Cambridge, and he wanted to talk to me about it. And I just said, no, that wouldn't be me. And that's when my dad started, oh, God, it will open all these doors. And
Why? Why wouldn't it be you? Just because it was like Brideshead Revisited?
Yeah, my impressions of it were just, I thought, well, I won't fit in there. And I was kind of right, to be honest with you, because I really struggled my first year. I was, I've had that imposter syndrome all my life to some degree or other. And, I had it massively in my first year at Cambridge. I was waiting for listen, we have made a mistake and we don't want you to feel, here's the door and, have a good
Even
life.
with your A-level results in your back pocket and all that sort of thing?
Yes, it was just, the way I always describe it was I just was exposed to sort of a kind of an environment that nothing in my school had prepared me for it.
See, everything in my school would have prepared me for that. So I find this fascinating because our backgrounds aren't that different up until the point that I went to private school.
Yeah.
My dad was on a Yorkshire regional newspaper when he was 15. So, but that's why parents do it, to give you that false confidence. And I think you clocked, if not false, you clocked that it was actually clothes that people put on, this confidence. It's not something that's innate or something that you're born with.
Well, it took me 2 years to work that out. I say that when I first arrived in Cambridge, I'd never seen confidence.
Were you frightened? I mean, it
was intimidating for certain. And, in the world I was in, you wouldn't have dreamt of said, I want to go to Cambridge, I want to be a member of Parliament, because you just...
You get a slap.
You'd be ripped to pieces. I mean, so you wouldn't have ever spoken of your ambition. Whereas all of a sudden I would speak in the most confident way. It took me a good 2 years to work out they were talking complete rubbish, but it sounded so good.
Yes.
It sounded...
And they would not think twice about telling you that they fully intended to be Prime Minister one day.
And that was quite hard to kind of come to terms with that. But, I do think I would, always come back to that interview process. That's the thing that, how can you go, even now from a state school, into that interview process? I was offered a glass of sherry, for God's sake, at St Catherine's College. I failed that interview. No bloody wonder.
Yeah.
I was in a kind of wood-panelled, book-lined room being offered a glass of sherry. And the first question of the interview was, I can remember it now, the tutor or director of study said, to what extent do you think the Canterbury Tales is like a modern-day package holiday? And I just sat there with this sherry in my hand and looked at him. I'm not sure I spoke for about 3. I always say I was still pondering the question when the rejection letter landed on the door. There was nothing in my life to that point that had prepared me for that experience. Nothing, not one thing. And so I just, when I got called back for a pool interview at Fitzwilliam College, which was had more of a tradition of state school intake, I was a bit, I've got a bit of a sort of a streetwise side that I kind of had, right, if that's the game, I'm coming back a bit better this time.
And your rise through the ranks of the party was quite swift. It does put you in that category, though, almost of the politician who's never had a proper job.
Definitely. I mean, I had a minor, roles outside Parliament, as I've described.
Sure.
But no, I was of that generation.
Does it matter? I've never been persuaded that it matters, but it's a criticism that will be levelled, isn't it?
I think it's
especially given everything we've already talked about. It's not as if you grew up in a petri dish, insulated from the reality of your school friends or your family or whatever it may be. But it is,
No. I part of me agrees with what you've just said, but I do think it probably helps if people have had, I don't know, 10 years in a solid profession, I guess, before going into Parliament. I think I was of the era of people who wanted to go more quickly there. And for me, once I got into Parliament, it was that Cambridge thing again. I can prove that I can stay here. That was the kind of driving thing, That generation were kind of around me: David Miliband, James Pennell, Ed Balls, and I was thinking, can I prove myself in this environment? And it was a challenging one to say the least. I remember I worked on the general election campaign at Millbank in 1997, and that was actually that was a bit of disillusionment before the Hillsborough thing in '98,
right?
Because it felt very detached, let's put it that way, and it felt
I
very
don't know what you mean.
It felt entitled.
Okay.
There was an arrogance in there.
So it felt like you thought when you were younger that it was two groups essentially from the same sort of background playing a game with each other.
Oh God, it felt very much like
interesting.
that. With the odd exceptional person who would stand out.
Like who?
Oh, Mo Mowlam. I remember Tessa volunteered me to work on Tony Blair's leadership campaign, and I was seconded to Mo Mowlam for a couple of weeks, and I'll always count myself lucky that I had that experience.
Special.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely. But Mo was very firmly of the real world. If there's one thing that defines me, it is about these two Englands that I'm trying to sort of, change. Why don't we get the same opportunities in my part of the world as are often taken for granted in London and the southeast? Why does an English city have to cry injustice for 20 years before anyone listens to it? These things motivate me, and I kind of feel that, the system was not going to change within, and so therefore, and I tried to be leader twice, and therefore, I thought, well, how can I now build what I believe in? And I think what we've built through the mayoral roles in Liverpool, Manchester, has started to kind of change a bit the landscape of British politics.
And in a sense, the bogus levelling up agenda was an attempt to steal your lunch, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, at first it sounded like it was, trying to put wind in our sails, but, the pandemic experience sort of blew that apart, didn't it? Where, they were trying to kind of railroad us into tier 3 by giving...
Another moment when you sort of left the reservation.
I absolutely was way off it by that point. I mean, but it was people always down here, and Rees Mogg kind of made this big thing about it. It was pure acting and grandstanding. I can't remember what he actually said, something like that. They misread. I mean, Westminster. I don't think people down here ever understood me because they misread what I'm kind of about. Really, I'm not always playing those games as they were in the Cambridge Union or in the. I'm not doing that. Where it's. I will generally speak as I find, and where the government has done the right thing, I'll say so. But when there's a point of principle, i.e. you're not treating people in Greater Manchester equally as you would people in London, then I will use what political skill I've got to make my voice heard as loudly as I can. And that's what I did. But then the world down here immediately said, oh, God, these mayors are just troublesome and we'll get rid of them and all the rest of it.
And is that the loudest your voice will get now? Mayor of Greater Manchester?
Well, I'm just going to answer this honestly because I know
you've
gone
been
are
asked
the days where I talk
times.
in code, so I'm not making any plans for any sort of immediate return. I've talked about doing a full second term in Greater Manchester, but I've not ruled out one day coming back because there is part of me still that says, how does this country start to work for everybody everywhere? It doesn't work for everybody everywhere. Those kids I went to school with never ever got anything like the opportunities that the people I was at university with. So how does it? And I think for me, where I've come to on my political journey is that you've got to rewire Britain, basically. You've got to rewire Parliament and then the political system beyond it if you are ever to make this place somewhere that works for everybody everywhere. So for me, I have now come round to the idea of proportional representation for the Commons because I think the whip system and the first past the post and the whip system actually empowers a small number of people in this postcode that you and I are talking in now. It does, it hands power to about 50 people in and around Downing Street and in the cabinet to make a huge number of decisions of massive consequence for 60 plus million people. And that can never be right, can it? So proportional representation for the Commons, an elected Senate of the nations and regions for the Lords, maximum devolution out to the great cities of England and beyond. For me, you've got to rewire the country in that way.
And finally, and briefly, personal ambition? Is there any?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, but for me, it's about, I want to go as high as I can go to enact as much change as I can on the themes that I've been talking about. So I know people won't like, they won't believe that down here, but that is what I'm doing. And the reason why I'm quite, everyone always thinks I'm about to jump and return to Westminster. The reason why I'm still doing what I'm doing in Greater Manchester is because we've just put a cap on bus fares. That makes me happier than anyone here would understand, because that is helping people today in Greater Manchester. I've given the kids a free bus pass. That makes me happy. And that's because that's about aspiration again. Yeah. I've kind of said to the 16 to 18-year-olds, we are going to back you because we believe in you. So we're giving you that free bus pass for you to go wherever life will take you. And that is why I do it.